Welcome everyone to Toolbox Tuesday with the Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association. My name is Justin Brooks and I'm a safety advisor. I help companies here in Regina as well as my assigned regions, which are Yorkton and Esterhazy. This Toolbox talk is currently being recorded for later viewing. Will be posted to Facebook as well as our YouTube channel. To find us on YouTube, type in SCSA in the search bar. Hit that little red subscribe button to stay up to date on all our Toolbox talks, which include topics like social distancing, mental health and stigma, hot weather and hydration, and our Wednesday webinar videos on topics like harassment in the workplace, WMIS, framing, and many more. If you're not following us on social media, after the video, look us up and hit the like button. Keep up to date on all things safety in Saskatchewan. So today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about complacency. So I've got a PowerPoint to which I will get all queued up here. All right, so workplace complacency. Complacency can be defined as self-satisfaction, especially when accompanied by unawareness of actual dangers or deficiencies. Complacency is extremely dangerous in the workplace. We get so used to things being done in the same way that we don't always look at the hazards in our surroundings. We may also underestimate the risks of tasks that we perform regularly or fail to notice a change in our environment when we become complacent in our daily routines. Construction complacency is usually referred to when talking about the workforce. It is one of those factors mentioned when workers get injured at work. Phrases like, he wasn't paying attention and as a result got injured. Didn't focus on the task at hand. She was rushing, forgot to use common sense, got frustrated, etc. All these are mentioned from time to time as a reason for the worker getting injured. The problem with such an assessment is that the cause of the injury rests with the worker, and this ultimately triggers traditional interventions such as training, catching the worker exhibiting these behaviors during inspections, and trying to correct it by providing feedback, coaching, counseling, or ultimately using rewards or disciplinary action. This is sometimes perceived as the main thrust of the safety manager's job, like keeping the good people safe. Dr. David Sirota conducted a considerable research program. This was with over 4 million workers worldwide, into why people become complacent and demotivated at work. He found that most people start out enthusiastic about their work. They work hard so as to succeed and thrive in their jobs. High enthusiasm at work usually translates into eagerness and a willingness to work hard. But in the long run, employees become complacent, demotivated, demoralized, and lose their enthusiasm, which isn't always the case, but this can result in either leaving the organization for another one, or they do just enough work to get by. This is highly detrimental to the organization's success. Dr. Sirota found that this was mostly caused by bad practices, deficient procedures, misaligned goals, and unintegrated systems, as to which poor conditions within the organization. This is virtually correctable by management action or intervention. Management and supervision must treat the workers fairly and equitably. They should enable the workers to succeed by doing proper planning, coordinating, expediting, staffing, directing, and controlling. They should also try and make the work meaningful so that employees feel they're learning and improving, as well as seeing opportunities for growth and advancement in the organization. Meryl Snow, a very successful entrepreneur, has a great quote that I like that relates to this very well. That motivation is an in-house job. It begins and ends with you. So why is complacency so dangerous? Complacency has many negative outcomes that are injurious to the organization. There are many examples of this. For example, take Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The President's Commission report that the root cause of the fatal explosion and subsequent massive oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico was the result of a culture of complacency. There were numerous warning signs that were ignored, failure to share information with others in the organization, and a general lack of concern associated with the risks involved and its acceptance. The 2 NASA shuttle explosions were another classic example of complacency, where information was not shared, warnings from engineers were ignored, and risks were underestimated, discounted, and ignored, which led to 2 horrific disasters. The culture of complacency can affect any organization, work site, or work group where the primary focus is on meeting production goals as well as accepting standards. This is especially true of construction companies where the schedule is a primary tool to drive production and measure performance. In such a culture, speed is valued and rewarded. In many cases, there's a continual pressure for greater speed and ever increasing the production output without due consideration for the capacity or capability. This, in many cases, results in workers taking shortcuts or risks to achieve goals or meet expectations. When working on the job, there's a danger when a person goes on autopilot. All too often, we don't realize how complacent we are until we have a near miss or incident. When something like this happens, it jumpstarts our heart and then we refocus our attention. Many long-haul drivers have talked about going into autopilot mode driving on the highway. They will drive many miles and then all of a sudden snap out of it and realize they have been driving without thinking about it. If employees aren't thinking about what could go wrong every day, all day while they work, they're not completing the task safely. Workers need to be trained and think ahead as they approach each task and consider what they're working with, what they'll be doing, where they'll be going, and what could go wrong. Many of these questions can be answered during the pre-job hazard assessment. However, hazard assessments are another concern for complacency. Make sure, when possible, hazard assessments and inspections are also rotated to avoid complacency when filling out documentation. In my experience, a really good way of doing this is to involve different workers every time if you're the safety manager. Encourage employees to examine equipment, procedures, and the hazards that may exist. They need to focus physically and mentally on their work, no matter how many times they have done the same job in the past. And lastly, management needs to support and encourage this behavior with their staff. The likelihood of complacency will decrease if an organization creates a culture that embraces enterprise-wide risk management. This graphic shows the complacency cycle, which has a general trend that is observed after an incident has taken place. So for this, we'll start at the accident, incident, death location of the cycle, move in a clockwise fashion. Right after the incident, there is an immediate focus on prevention. All cylinders of management are firing at once, and they're working hard to figure out what the next steps are. This is where they determine the how and beginning conversations about ensuring that it doesn't happen again. There are new policies are developed, and there is training for every member of the team that could be affected. A good management team will ensure there's 100% compliance with the new procedures and that every member is bought in. Then time passes. This could be days, months, or years. Again, this is by no means specific to any event or company. Depending on numerous factors, whether that be rotation of employees, new management, or general safety culture, the incident that started the cycle is fading from the minds of the workforce and the incident is mostly forgotten. Workers become comfortable and familiar with their tasks and then become complacent. And that is when the cycle has the possibility of starting all over again. So we've discussed how people and workers become complacent and its effects on business and the job site, but how do we defeat it? How do we stop that cycle? Let's go through 6 steps and tips in defeating complacency in the workplace. So the first one is to recognize it. You have to acknowledge that complacency exists in order to address it. Take an honest look at both you and your employees' habits, attitudes, and actions. Are you taking the little things for granted? Are you doing less of the things that led to past success? Are you operating on autopilot? Put it in context. Complacency won't likely occur until you've had some success. So recognize and celebrate the success first. Then challenge your employees to step it up and work hard so that you can experience more success. Pardon me. Help them remember what it feels like to win. Then they can emotionally connect to that feeling. You can use that to ward off complacency and focus them on the next achievement. Set new goals. You should always be working towards a new goal, even after you've just met one. Shortly after celebrating your success, work with your team to set new goals. Make sure the new goals are challenging enough to inspire and motivate employees to keep striving for more. Keep your purpose clear. Goals are great, but it is the underlying purpose or the reason the goals matter that will truly drive discipline and performance. Regularly remind people of your purpose and tell them how new goals and projects align with that purpose. Explain why their work matters and it will be more meaningful to them. Create healthy competition. Human beings love competition, both against themselves and others. And you can combat complacency with a healthy dose of creative competition. Create ways to help people compete against themselves or against the goals they surpassed last year. Allow teams to compete, though not in a destructive or disabling way, and with each other in seeking common goals. Define outside competitor as the source of your energy and effort. Remember history and human nature. History shows that complacency is part of the human condition. Recognizing that helps you deal with it personally, as a team or organization. However, when you feel it or see it, don't resort to guilt or blame. Instead, acknowledge it and use your mental and emotional energy to focus on overcoming it instead of stressing out about it. So these are a few ways that we can combat complacency. One of the big things, again, is to recognize that it does happen, especially in jobs where you're doing the same thing over and over again. And that doesn't just mean manufacturing. This is also things that if you have the same task that involves the same steps all the time, it's great to set those goals and have a team of management and safety professionals that really believe in that process of combating complacency. So thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in tomorrow for our Wednesday webinar. SCSA Safety Advisor Steve Waldbauer will be talking about heating, hoarding, and air quality, as well as other construction hazards that we prepare for winter with. So I hope you learned a lot, and stay safe, everyone.